everybody. I am here today with Sophie, if she'll let me get into the camera frame, and I am going to review for you The Vincent Boys by Abbi Glines. Sophie just likes staring at herself in the camera, I think. This book was one that I picked up a while ago. I'm not even positive how long it's been sitting on my shelf, but it was one of the first Abbi Glines books that I ever bought. I've been really interested to start reading her books lately, especially since I've amassed quite a collection of them, because I had a feeling that once I started to read them, I wasn't going to necessarily want to stop. That, of course, being said, I don't have the second book in this series, and I definitely want to read it now. So this book is about a girl named Ashton and her boyfriend's cousin, Beau, and her boyfriend, but he's not really in most of the book. So Ashton is your typical good girl, but she's not really a good girl. She just really pretends to be a good girl because she's the pastor's daughter. Whereas Beau is your definite typical bad boy, and yeah. When they were kids, they used to be really good friends. And then when Ashton started dating Sawyer, her boyfriend and Beau's cousin, the friendship kind of fizzled. Now that Sawyer's gone for the summer, Beau has kind of inadvertently stepped up to help her. And yeah, their previous friendship relationship definitely kind of blooms into something a little more, but something that shouldn't necessarily be at the current moment. So I really enjoyed this book. I read it in one sitting. I mean, I was up until probably 4:30 in the morning finishing reading it. It was that good. Well, okay, maybe it wasn't necessarily that good, but it was that compelling to read. It is your stereotypical young adult romance with a love triangle, but it was so addictive. There were things I didn't like about the book, though. For example, I didn't like the fact that Ashton couldn't just break up with her boyfriend. There was a lot of, psychologicalness going on there, and while I understood it, I mean, it's high school. You don't have to marry this guy. So, yeah, when you are really falling in love with someone else, you see where I'm going? But that being said, you're also dealing with Beau, and Beau doesn't want to hurt Sawyer either. So part of why Ashton's not breaking up with Sawyer is so that she doesn't ruin the relationship between him and Beau. But of course, shit always hits the fans in these books, and I was really, really captivated by the time that it did. And then I just needed to know what happened and how it finishes. And now I need the second book, and I don't have it. Yeah. So as far as inappropriateness goes in this book, it's pretty tame. I mean, it is young adult. A lot of Abbi Glines' books are a new adult, so from what I've been told, there is a lot more explicit sex scenes in here. I actually wasn't sure if the sex scene in this book was a sex scene until I kind of reread it, and then several chapters later was actually informed that that's what happened. So it's kind of like if you've read Breaking Dawn. Yeah, is that the fourth Twilight book? Yeah, Breaking Dawn. So if you've read Breaking Dawn, it's kind of similar to the actual sex scene that's in that book as well. I mean, it's as far as, literature goes and comparing it to a lot of other young adult books and authors, yeah, it's basically non-existent. I really liked the characters in this book. So not only, I mean, Ashton did piss me off some, but I love the fact that she was really trying to be true to herself, but she didn't want to disappoint people, so it was making it really difficult. Her internal struggle I found was really interesting. Beau just seemed super sexy, and I mean, if I was that age, I would totally want to go for that kind of guy, because even though he is the resident bad boy in town, he is so sweet and protective and nice, and he has that extra layer underneath, like an ogre with the onions. Then you have Sawyer. I did not really care for Sawyer. He seemed like a bit of a pompous douchebag, cocooning himself in the image of a really good guy. This mostly, of course, is from when he actually physically appears in the book, about midway to 2/3 of the way through. And I just kind of wanted to punch him a lot of the time. By the end of the book, my feelings toward him have warmed a little, and it is the main reason why I want to read the second book, because the second book actually focuses on him and another female love interest, kind of, from what I've read. So there is that, but yeah, was not a fan of Sawyer and was so happy that Ashton did not choose him. But then you have a great set of supporting characters as well. So you have Ashton's grandma who, oh my god, I totally would want her as my grandma because she is a feisty little old lady with hot pink painted toes and she tells it like it is. I mean, that is essentially what I want to be when I get to be, you know, 16 up because, yeah, I really want to have the excuse of being old to be a nasty little spitfire. Although still very polite to people in the customer service industry. And then you also have Ashton's parents are a big fixture in this book, which in a lot of young adult books you don't necessarily see. But you do get to really kind of get a feel for her mom and her dad being the pastor of the town and her mom. Although it's not actually said, I kind of think it's just kind of your stereotypical like housewife. I could be wrong. Who knows? But they seem to really have a good connection with their daughter and they wanted what was best for her, even though it didn't always necessarily their idea of what was best and line up to what Ashton's idea of what was best was. But they were really loving, caring parents, so that was really great. And then you have Ashton's best friend, Leanne. And Leanne is a little older, so she's actually in college in this book. And she just seemed like she was full of really good wisdom. And I wish there had been more of her in the actual book. She seemed kind of like a Yoda. And last but not least, you have Beau's mom. She seemed like a really real character. And she would have definitely represented a lot of struggles that a lot of families would go through with a single parent and a really sexy son. Okay, not all of them would necessarily have the really sexy son, but you know what I'm going for. So I would definitely suggest picking this book up. I would suggest making sure you have access to the second book shortly after. And they're actually coming out with a third book sometime this year. I will put the date down here. And I know I will be buying it as quickly as I can. I was so stupid. I actually had the second book in my book outlet, like, shopping bag, and for whatever reason didn't purchase it at the time for $2.99. And yeah, they don't have any more copies. So definitely kicking myself over that one. So until next time, guys, I am Catherine, and this is the lovely Sophie who likes to intrude where she's not necessarily wanted all the time. Right? I will see you next time, and until then, happy reading!